I think that regardless of where you're at, listen, if you're a cleaning person, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I'd build a Corona Clean package and I would put a price amount on that and I'd suit up and I'd be out there hustling. If I was a host, I'd be figuring out where the niche is. You could reach out to the local hospitals and get in touch with like the ICU and the cancer wards and places like that have family that need to come stay while the patient's in treatment. Listen, if you're a true entrepreneur, these are the times that you figure it out and you make it happen.
This is episode number 55 of the Short-Term Rental Success Stories podcast. Are you an investor that's looking to have your home professionally managed? Go to cohostit.com for more information. Welcome back to Short-Term Rental Success Stories. I'm your host, Julian Sage. This is a show where I talk to hosts about their journeys in starting and growing their short-term rental business. My goal is that you'll be able to walk away with practical information that'll help you become a better host and learn how to scale your business. Like any exceptional host, we all strive for 5-star reviews, so please go on over to iTunes and let us know what you enjoy, as it really helps support the show. If you haven't done so already, go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation, to connect with the community. Hey, welcome back, Host Nation. I'm super excited to be back again with you this week. So in this episode, we have the special honor of speaking with Rick Carlson, who was in episode number 26 of the Success Stories. You can go to shorttermsage.com/STR26 to listen to that episode with Rick. Now, Rick, in this episode, he talks about how crucial it is to diversify your revenue streams to get through whatever type of hiccup that comes along with this pandemic. Now, my life would have been seriously impacted significantly more if I had not had my primary stream of income being my job. I'm full-time active duty in the Coast Guard, so I have a reliable stream of income that's been able to come in that has been able to keep me able to pay for my lifestyle. If I was solely dependent on the short-term rental income, that would be a very different story. And I know how many people are hurting during this time. I've seen a lot of fellow hosts, a lot of my friends that are being impacted by this pandemic, and my heart goes out to everybody that has been impacted. And I think during this time, diversification is really kind of the eye-opener for lots of hosts. Lots of hosts are talking about diversification onto other OTAs, other online travel agencies. Not being dependent on one sole stream really makes an impact. I've started getting more requests from places like Furnish Finders for finding traveling nurses. That's another way of diversifying. I'm diversifying how I'm going to be getting more bookings. But when it comes to income, having diversification in my income has also been able to help. Now, again, I have a primary job in the Coast Guard, and short-term rentals, my unit downstairs was able to supplement me, was able to cover my mortgage. I had a property that I was personally managing that was able to give me some extra money. But I also had diversification in other things, such as my other interests. I do create content. I do have a couple other YouTube channels, and I've been able to bring in some profit through all of the content that I've been able to make. It's nowhere near where I was getting with my short-term rental income, but now that the short-term rental income has significantly dropped, these other streams of income are still able to bring in, and it's able to keep me a little bit more afloat. Now, I know this isn't the case for a lot of professional hosts, a lot of hosts that are full-time. Maybe they quit their jobs because they did want to manage professionally. And during times like this, it can be really uncertain. But I think this is also a wake-up call, because not only do we have to diversify on where we're going to be getting our clients or how we're going to be, marketing our properties, but also where are we also getting our money in from? I love short-term rentals as it's really changed my life, but I also do need to know that I can't get out of the military and just solely depend on one source of income. Having other streams of income is going to be very important. Or at least where you're getting your income coming in from other places. We've seen things now, such as like Vermont just the other day said that they are not going to be allowing short-term rentals indefinitely just due to the pandemic. Having to delist their properties from sites like Airbnb is going to impact so many hosts. But what if we had the ability to be able to tap into other ways of being able to get guests to stay with us? This is one of the things that I do want to bring onto the show more, and that's going to be about corporate housing companies. I think that that's going to be a way for us to be able to diversify ourselves and be able to get closer towards where the sole channel of all of these different people are coming in from. Because if you're able to diversify where you're getting your tenants and not just from one of these OTAs, and you're able to have something that's more your own, I think that's where short-term rentals in the future are also going to need to go, not just relying on a single OTA or not just relying on a single way of marketing your place as a short-term rental, but offering diverse clientele. And this is all going to also come to where you are selecting your properties, because if you're in the arbitrage space, you're going to need to think a little bit more strategically about where are you picking up these properties moving forward in the future. Is your place in a location where you can tap into those, let's say those hubs, like those corporate clients or those recurring clients, and be able to collect them and have them stay at your properties during times like this? The big message of this episode is going to be about diversification. If you like my show notes for this episode, go to shorttermsage.com/STR55, or if you like my show notes sent directly to your inbox every week, then go to shorttermsage.com/show notes. With all that being said, on to this week's conversation. Hey, welcome back, Host Nation, to another episode of Short-Term Rental Success Stories. In this episode, I have the special honor of speaking with Rick Carlson. Rick is a previous guest on the show from episode 26. So if you want to listen to that episode, go to shorttermsage.com/STR26 to watch that episode. Rick, if you please, wouldn't mind giving a very brief introduction about who you are, where you were when we first started talking, and where you are now. And this episode really is just talking about, what are the things that we're doing in your business today, and also some of the things that you also foresaw prior to this whole pandemic situation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me back on. It is a great pleasure and honor to be back. A little bit about me. So I am an entrepreneur by heart. So I've been primarily self-employed for the past 25 years of my adult life. I've only had 3 jobs as an adult, and I was fired from 2 of them, which I'm very proud of. Those stats, I'm not batting 100, but pretty close. And so what I do in my world, so I'm a full-time real estate broker, mortgage loan officer, and then I also have an Airbnb business and a couple of other businesses. And so, the last time we talked, where I've been since then to today. So I'm in a very seasonal market. So through the winter, because our season is just non-existent during the winter, I do winter renters. And so they just stay for a very clear defined amount of time, and then they leave when the season starts. So we just make it work for everybody. My goal is just to have a loss leader through the winter. I know I'm not going to make money, so to speak, but as long as I can cover my cost. And that's been my main focus, which every winter I'm super nervous, like everybody, I think, in my same shoes. And I'm like, oh gosh, what are we going to do? And it just pans out. It just happens. And we don't always have the answer. We just hustle and make it happen. And it seems to everything turns out okay, at the end of the day. So yeah, so that's where we're at today. And everything's going well. I think we've got some new challenges coming up, and we will separate the wantrepreneurs from the entrepreneurs as we move forward. And over the next 6 months, I think you're going to see the landscape greatly change compared to what it looks like today.
Now, you've got quite a few different businesses. Do you think that that's actually a benefit during this time? One of the strategies that you said, during that slow season, you believe in the previous episode when we were talking, you said that you'd actually rent those out long term. You'd just leave them furnished, or potentially take out the furniture and you'd leave tenants in there. What's your strategy moving forward? Because right now we're coming into that high season, or we are in that high season, but it's it's more like a slow season right now. So how are you handling the situation?
Absolutely. So our season is from Memorial Day to Labor Day. So about May 1st to September 1st. And this past winter, I put renters in. I left the units furnished. I've tried breaking them down and emptying them out so that somebody can move in. A couple of issues with that I see that I've experienced is, number one, once they move all their stuff in, they don't want to move out. Like, they don't want to move in 6 months or 5 months or whatever the number is. So when you take furnished rentals, generally you get a little bit more money, but then it's not as hard for them to make that transition back out of the unit. And it's just, communication is super important, and set the expectations and be very clear about what's going to happen. So this past week, I focused on going into fall. I really focused on traveling nurses. There was a need in my market for them, which means they needed housing, yada, yada, yada. So I've actually have a healthcare worker in one of my units. He was in for a 90-day contract. They offered him this past week, actually on Sunday, they offered him an extension. And we talked about it and it made sense. And so I was looking at like, how do I hedge my bets? Do I gamble and think that we're going to have a season this season for Airbnb? Because we originally were on path to double our production from last year to this year with my Airbnb business. Now I'm really uncertain what that looks like. So what I've done is I've allowed them to extend, because had I not extended the lease, they were going to just they were going to get a job in a different market. But since I extended, he extended, so we can make it win for everybody. And so they'll be there until July 13th now. So worst case scenario, I know that I have that property covered in the mortgage cover, because my carrying costs on that property are about $1,400 a month. So I know no matter what, through July 13th, I'm covered. I've got another renter that was a winter renter who we also had the same conversation of if he wanted to stay longer. He's in a different position. He's actually local. He's going through some life events. And at some point, he'll buy a house. He's just kind of waiting. So our conversation actually last night was, hey, if you want to stay longer, let's work out the details of that and make it work. And because he really likes the situation he's in overall. So I think I'm going to move him into a different unit and have him probably stay through the summer. I mean, he's unsure where he's going to go. So if I can get another 3-6 months out of him, and once again, now I'm covering my other property and its carrying cost. So that's a win. So then that'll leave me 2 units, a 2-bedroom unit and a 3-bedroom unit to do Airbnb on. So I figure worst case scenario, I've taken 50% of my carrying units and made them long-term. So I know no matter what, my costs are met. And then I'm going to gamble with the other 2 units that I can actually make money and get ahead on those 2 units. If I put them out and they don't produce, I'll evolve those into possibly long-term units, but I will just do my long-term units through April of 2021. So that way I'm not getting myself in this vicious cycle of just having long-term renters. So I want to get through winter, and then in the spring we evaluate where we're at, and then either you got to go or you can stay longer, and we kind of sort that out. The rentals in our market are very difficult to come by. And especially where I'm at, I'm in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I'm exactly a mile from the downtown resort strip, if you will, what little downtown we have. So I have a pretty sought after location, and we're freeway entrance is 30 seconds away. Downtown is 5 minutes away. Like, it's just a really good place to be in a low traffic street. So I'm going to win no matter what. It's just a matter of how that looks. So, and then you would also asked about diversifying and all that other stuff. I would say that I'm pretty diversified with my industries. So if one tends to get a little bit less fruitful, the others are pretty solid. And I have a bottom, I don't know what you would call that, but like my minimum revenue flow. So like on my janitorial company, it's the same every month of the year, 365 days a year. We just renewed contracts with one of my larger accounts. And then my other account is pretty solid long term, I believe. But what's ironic is this morning I actually had one of my cleaners quit because she's like, I need my last check so I can buy quarantine supplies and just go into quarantine, because she's afraid she's gonna catch the coronavirus by emptying somebody's trash can. And so, which is her right. So I think that, is it the right move? I don't think so. Not in my opinion, but who am I to make that call for somebody else?
And with that, because the strategy that you were saying with your units, you're taking the units that you think would be more profitable during the high season, taking the tenants out of those and moving them to other units where you think it would be better for long-term rentals?
So so what I would say my premium unit, and my units are pretty nice. Like, they've all been remodeled and updated and they're pretty nice. But my nicest one is the gentleman that's in there. He likes the option of having one of my other units better because it is it's a ranch style home. It's a duplex, but the big side of it is a ranch style. So there's only one adjoining wall where right now he's above the other tenant. And so there's a little bit of noise transference. And so he's, and he's a super nice guy, and I really like him and I really enjoy him as a person. So anything that I can do to help him in his situation. And then it also helps me. I mean, we're not, I'm not the guy that's like, I want to help everybody, and I want it to be a reciprocal relationship, not just me winning or them winning. I want everybody to win, if you will. And so if he's willing to stay longer, I know he pays rent. He doesn't quiver about it. And he's been super good to me. So if I can keep him longer, I will. So, but he just wants to be in a different unit. I was willing to leave him in that unit longer. But he said he'd rather be in a ranch style unit, which is fine. I have it available coming up. So.
And I think the last time that we talked, you said that you don't increase the rental price for your furnished units. Is that just your location specific, or have you actually been increasing the price?
There's a little bit of a premium on the monthly or on the winter renters, but once again, my goal is to fill them and pay the bills. I just know 5 months out of the year, my goal is to be a loss leader. If I make money, great, but I would rather not be paying $2,500 a month to carry these two properties. And I just bought right. There's going to be some people that question those numbers of like, how can you carry two properties for $2,500 a month? Well, I bought them. They needed work. I've put a lot of money into the one property, and I'm in the process of putting not as much money, but money into the other property. So, I did, the BRRRR strategy, if you will. And so I bought them as investments and put sweat equity into them. So my front end numbers are really low. And then my back end numbers, I've put my own money in out of pocket. So my carrying cost, I've done pretty well with my carrying cost. And those would look very different had I just financed it all up front or, whatever, bought them remodeled. My goal is just to break even through the winter because I know I'm going to make my money in the summer.
What were prior to us hitting the record, you said that you were actually kind of anticipating something like this happening, which is pretty surprising. So could you kind of talk about the strategy that you've had, the mindset that you've had kind of prior to this, and how you've been best preparing yourself for a type of situation?
Absolutely. So for the past, I would say for the past 24 months, I've been starting to prepare my team that, things are going to change. We just don't know when. So, as an 18-year real estate professional, I've seen the market go up, down, and around. I went through '08, and I was super ill positioned going into that market, and I lost everything. I legitimately lost everything except what little money that I squirreled away. And that is what I went on to buy the next business with. And then, that was an equipment purchase, and then we built that out. So for the past 6 to 12 months, though, I've really been honing in on my team as far as what we're doing, how we're doing it, how we're positioning ourselves in the market, and how we're diversifying in such a way and ensuring our avenues of revenue to get through whatever hiccup comes along. So, a lot of people, while I do agree that you really do need to focus on one thing to be great at one thing, you need to make sure that if your one thing is not insulated from the economy, which most one things are not, that you have some diversity in your income. Because once again, I went through this in '08. I had 3 houses across the country. I owned two businesses at that time, and one was real estate and one was in the restaurant, a chain of restaurants. And it was the epic storm that just wiped me out. And so, 32 years old, living with your pregnant girlfriend's mother, that is no fun. And, for us to really embrace lessons, they have to be painful. And that was definitely painful. So I feel like I learned from that. So I've literally in the last 11 years, since that time, I've just busted my butt to get past the obstacles that were in the way, build some diversity, and make sure that if that happened again, I wasn't going to be in trouble. And so, and it's one of those things where I build something, I get it running without me, and then I kind of move on to the next thing. And so it's just been, it's just the little tweaks. And, it's not always fun, but I can tell you right now that I am excited. I'm genuinely excited about the future and the opportunities to come, because I understand that people are going to be freaking out, and it's the 10% that are just going to be like, this is awesome. Let's go help some people and let's go make some money and make it a win-win for everybody.
I know you're handling yourself very very calmly during this uncertain time, and I think that's really awesome. But that's probably also because you've experienced something very similar. Do you see that experience in 2008 very similar to the one that we have today, or are they pretty different in your eyes?
That's a great question. I would say that they're different. We had some factors going in to that we don't have today, as far as legislation and how they're handling things on the government level. We're so early into this, it's really difficult to say one way or another. The biggest issue that we run into is that since 2008 till this corona situation arrived, we had the longest progression of finances in the history of finances. So we never had a hiccup. We never had a setback. We never had a plateau, long-term plateau that said, okay, things are cooling down. And I've kind of watched it. And what's ironic is we've had multiple events that I thought, this is pretty significant, and this is going to set the chain. And I don't remember exactly what it was, and I'm sure my facts are a little off here, but there was like I think 2 years ago, the blue chip stocks lost like $1 billion in value in one day. Nobody was talking about it. Nobody mentioned it. And I thought, that's really weird. And then we just moved on. And I thought, well, hell, if the market loses $1 billion in one day and it can't be explained, why is that? Like, what's happening there? But everybody just glazed over it and moved on. And so there is no history to repeat itself here. We're 12 years into a progression. Who knows what's going to happen? We just don't know. We don't know. Is this going to, there's a CDC report that I saw that was leaked, supposedly, and they're saying that this thing's going to last 18 months. Well, the question that I ask is, are you prepared for this thing to last 12 to 18 months? One of my neighbors is a high level at a local bank, and she talked to her builders. She called every one of her builders last week that she has financed, and every one of them said, we're moving forward. We're not stopping. We're not slowing down. The need for housing is still there, and they're just moving forward. So I don't know if we're in that situation where everybody's in denial and everybody's, just kind of waiting and seeing. But what I see is a majority of people freaking out. Like, I had one of my janitors, she quit this morning. And she says, I've got to look out for my family, and I got to look out for my health, and this, that, and the other. And this is a person that when she goes to work, she doesn't come into contact with anybody. She's in an empty building by herself. She's wearing gloves. Unless she's touching God knows everything, and then touching her face, mouth, and, however else you catch this thing, I don't see how that's, to me, that seems like one of the safest jobs you could have in this time frame. But yet she's freaking out, and she quits, and she's clamming up and going away. And I just said, perfect. I said, I respect your decision, and I absolutely respect your decision. Best of luck to you. And so those are the people that are going to be really hurting long term. I think that, to freak out during times like this is, people are looking for leaders. And if you have, like in my position, I have multiple people that look at me for direction and assurance that we're going to be okay. And trust me, I had this conversation with my real estate agent a couple days ago. And she's like, I'm a little nervous. And I'm like, why are you nervous? Like, you don't understand. This is what I've been preparing you for the last 12 months. Like, I've been waiting for this. Like, I get goosebumps because I'm so excited that, the world's going to change for the good. We've gotten an abundance of supply without the demand in a lot of industries. So, and one example of that is we've gotten an abundance of real estate professionals in the real estate space without the supply of transactions to feed all those agents. So just like in 2008, 70% of the agents are going to bail out, go do something else, go back to their job, whatever it is. And 30% are going to pick up the slack and then it'll turn back into a healthy market. For Airbnb and the vacation rental world, I think you're going to see a little bit of the same thing. There are some markets that don't allow Airbnb, or they're super stringent, like Denver, where it has to be your primary residence to be an Airbnb. In my local market, we don't have those restraints. So, I think that, guys like me that are hedging their bets are gonna fare pretty well. There's and I won't mention any names, but there's definitely some guys in the vacation rental space that have 100 units, and Sean, I'll let you figure out who the last name is, but Sean, and he's had to switch, and they do 2 million plus a year in revenue, and they've just had to reformat their model, and they're back to 80% capacity as of this morning. So I think the opportunity is there. I just think that it is a matter of shifting your focus in how you do business and just not freaking out. Be the calm in the storm, because that's what people want to see. And when you freak out, what I tell my clients in every genre that I'm in is, when you make emotional decisions, that cost you money. So make logical, fiscal based decisions, and you'll be okay.
What are, I really, I think that's such a great piece of advice, that when we are making emotional decisions during this time, and we've been making a lot of emotional decisions during this whole up cycle, everybody's looking at, especially the rental arbitrage model, and they're looking at how much profit there is, and they're just emotionally investing into all of these properties thinking, I'm going to make all this money. And now, we're on the opposite side. Now there's a lot of people talking about this is a model that's going to die. All the rental arbitrage hosts are going to, be out of pocket now, and it's a dying model. And it's very fear and emotional based thinking. But what were some of the things that you were doing strategically during these past few years to be able to prepare yourself for this type of situation?
So I think the number one thing for me is diversity, because I got caught with my pants down in 2008. I was in a really bad position. Things just kept getting worse and worse and worse. I was paying like $5,000 a month to keep one business afloat for 2 years. And in hindsight, I should have not done that. I should have saved that, $120,000, and I would have been in a much better position. Instead, after everything was done and I was homeless, I was sitting on like $17,000 cumulative total after I sold most of my assets. So going into this, I was really focused on diversity. And trust me, a few of my mentors were very adamant against diversity. They said, you need to focus on one thing. You need to go all in on one thing. And I said, I appreciate that. And I love that. And I've got solid residual income from these 2 different businesses that I'm not working for, and I'm not trading time for dollars. So why would I give up something that's not taking away from my headspace? And I'm just very glad that I stuck to my guns on that, because had I just stuck with, say, one thing like real estate, we wrote 2 offers last week, or, we had 2 offers go under contract last week. Things are still moving, but I can tell like the things have changed, but we don't know how they've changed and to what degree. So if I only was a real estate agent, I'd be super nervous. I wouldn't be freaking out, but I would legitimately be wondering what the hell I was going to do. And in myself and 2 partners just bought another house, a single family house. It's the first single family house I've owned in 6 years. 6 years. It's the first single family house I've bought in 6 years. But once again, the ROI on it is very good. It makes a lot of sense. Even with the market doing what it's doing, it's making a lot of sense. So I think that you just have to move with purpose. And, so when I go into any situation, whether it be a business or a real estate investment or any kind of investment, my goal is to have at least 3 exit strategies. If I'm living in the house and I can't afford it, we rent it out. And if I can't rent it out, or well, it's live, Airbnb. If I can't Airbnb it, then we rent it out long term. And if I can't rent it out long term, what else can I do with it? If I can't do anything else with it, then we sell it. So you just have these steps. And once again, I don't make, for me, I'm not emotional about the decisions that I make. If it makes fiscal sense, we do it. And if it doesn't, then we don't. And a lot of people, even one of my investors, we look at certain investments together and it's just doomsday and it's worst case scenario of this and that. And I said, yeah, but what if this goes right? What if option 1 goes right? Because we're 300xing our ROI. Option 2 only, let's say option 1 doesn't work, option 2 works out, and now we're only, this ROI. Worst case scenario, we're walking away with a 10% gain, which you're not going to get in the market. So I think it's just important to have a calm head and have an exit strategy. And for me, I always have multiple exit strategies going into whatever it is.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you jumping on here and sharing your message, Rick. Is there anything else that you feel that for those listeners that are tuning in and they're maybe freaking out, maybe they have a bunch of different businesses, maybe they think everything, it's all gone. They have a cleaning business, they're a real estate broker or a real estate agent, and they have some rentals, and maybe they're worried, maybe they haven't had to experience something like that. Do you have any words of advice to someone that is in that similar situation like you?
So I always say, and I tell my team, I say, listen, there's 2 kinds of people in this world. There's lions and there's sheep. And most people get offended by that and they don't want to understand it. But, the lions are the leaders and the people that pave the way. They give you the confidence and they show you the path to accomplish these great things. The sheep are the people that help you accomplish that. And the piece that most people miss is we need each other. It's the lion's not here to slaughter the sheep. And the sheep's not here to feed the lion. We're here to feed each other and do this thing together, because it doesn't matter which side you're on. What's important is that you recognize who you are, you embrace that, and you align yourself with a counterpart, because I couldn't do what I do without the people that I have on my team. They theoretically, in some cases, couldn't do what they want to do without somebody like me. Now, I think we're all capable and we all have our strengths, but we all have our weaknesses. So for me, I surround myself with people that their strengths are my weaknesses. I don't need another one of me on the team. We wouldn't get anything done. We talk about these big grandiose plans all freaking day, but nothing would get done. And so the next thing you know, we're all broke. So, I think that regardless of where you're at, listen, if you're a cleaning person, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I'd build a Corona clean package, and I would put a price amount on that, and I'd suit up and I'd be out there hustling. If I was a host, I'd be figuring out where the niche is. You could reach out to the local hospitals and get in touch with like the ICU and the cancer wards and places like that have family that need to come stay while the patient's in treatment. There's a ton of that, and it's in every market for the most part. I think every market's going to be a little different. So whatever that opportunity is for you, you go make it happen. And listen, if you're a true entrepreneur, these are the times that you figure it out and you make it happen. If you're a true team player, or dare I say employee, that's okay too. Embrace it. Align yourself with that right person that's going to help carry you guys. Because, in the words of Gary Vaynerchuk, not everybody's a number 1. It's okay to be a number 2 through 30, because the number 30 person at Facebook is worth a hell of a lot more than number 1 me in my organization. I have no problem being a number 2 through 30, by the way. I just happen to be a number 1 in today's world. That may change down the road. So figure it out. You'll make it happen regardless of what that looks. And don't be ashamed of who you are and what your position is in this world, because it's needed and it's necessary.
Thank you so much, Rick, for the encouragement. I think you're strategically unemployed, and I think that's very it's a very you've gone through this before, and I think that having experienced that, you have just a wealth of knowledge. So I appreciate you coming on here and taking the time to help the Host Nation and build that confidence back up.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
All right, thank you. And until next time, Host Nation, keep on hosting. Hope you hosts benefited from the show. If you found value, please go on over to iTunes, leave us a review, and let us know what you enjoy about the show. If you'd like to talk to hosts that have been featured in these episodes as well as the community, go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation.